He's awake. It's just his body betrayed him because of too much energy that came out from him. Despite of tiredness, a grin was displayed on his face. At least he successfully did the immersion, right? He has now mastered the level 1 fighting technique. At some point in the near future, he will learn how to activate his upper body muscles. Furthermore, he has already used far more force than his body can sustain in the earlier battle. As a result, there will be backlash for forcibly increasing his strength. Youngman's face began to turn sour. The pain he was feeling was so intense. It was so overwhelming that he had lost track of time and space. It felt like millions of knives were piercing every part of his body. He was yelling louder than he ever had before in his life. In a hurry, Saren checked on Youngman. His face screams a mix of panic and concern. She asked if Youngman was hurt. Youngman tried his best to put on a little smile to cover up the pain and said, "It's just muscle cramps. It's been a while since I moved like that." One last time, Saren questioned him as she assisted him in sitting down. To feed her curiosity, she mentioned that Youngman had claimed while he was inside the academy that he does not possess any unique ability. But based on what he did just now, it says otherwise. His heart skips a beat as he wonders if he has actually done all that. If he really killed all the blood wolves from earlier. He looked down at his hands and noticed that the wolves had scratched and bruised them, in addition to leaving behind a liquid that was a deep purple color. With those hands, he manages to fight. The thing that he thought he could not do for the rest of his life since he moved out of the academy. And most importantly, together with Saren, they saved a lot of lives. He told Saren that his body merely started moving all of a sudden after he was cornered. He is of the opinion that the instruction he received at the academy was really beneficial to him. Saren, on the other hand, was still confused. She is still in kind of doubt about what Youngman has told her. Youngman was more than happy to know that he could apply the immersion on the side character. This meant that, provided he was strong enough, he could borrow the strength of everyone in the game. When a searing pain twitched in his abdomen, he realized that it was the side effect of his unique ability. Saren convinced him for the nth time that he was not okay and should really go to a hospital to have his condition checked. But the hard-headed Youngman said no and that a little workout was enough for him. He cannot continue using this unique ability if he does not have the stamina to keep moving. He must work on that. The day dawns anew and pristine. At that moment, Youngman was prone on his bed. It wasn't until his phone made a noise that the guy woke up. He opened his bleary eyelids to check the notification on his phone. It came from Saren, and she was apologizing to him. Why? Youngman wondered, would she say sorry? His eyes widened as a startling realization dawned on him, which he must confirm himself. But the moment he tried to rise from his bed, the pain in his muscles flared up. His jaw dropped to the floor, his eyes nearly went white, and he was sweating bullets. In the end, he fell from his bed. Poor Youngman. He was trying to soothe the ache in his head when he noticed his phone. He began to panic when he saw that there were 32 missed calls and 92 personal messages flashed on the screen. What is going on? Instead of worrying too much, he decided to call Saren and ask for a clear explanation. Immediately after answering the call, Saren said her apologies. Wolf appears. Academy cadets save the day. It was taken from the headline of an article that Youngman is in the process of reading at the moment as he is on the phone with Saren. He was seen in the picture standing with his legendary macaroni steel. Saren said that due to the fact that Youngman apparently disliked his involvement with the academy, she tried not to talk about what happened in the supermarket. Still, somehow it became an issue and uploaded within a day. Youngman pondered the issue's rapid escalation. Why do you think the creatures suddenly emerged somewhere that wasn't a dungeon? Certainly, something is changing in a way that isn't the same as before. After assuring Saren that everything is all right, Youngman then scrolled down the page and read the comments that had been left. There are some who don't like him, but there are also some, especially the ones at the mart who experienced the situation firsthand, who thank him. A mother even bowed through her words. The thought of helping others made him blush. He couldn't help but feel gratified by the fact that some individuals had faith in his capabilities. His daydreaming moment was cut through when messages popped up on his screen. They were mostly from the people in the academy. They want to meet him. But the most relevant message he read was from his previous instructor. Did you awaken your skill? The message states. His expression altered abruptly, and a gloom settled over his chamber. Only a moron, in his opinion, would think they would want to meet with him. When did they start taking an interest in him? Saren, who had been on the phone to herself for some time, interrupts his train of thought. Saren offered to treat him 10 times. Youngman was a bit flustered, but it was not her fault either. Taking advantage of the offer, Youngman asked Saren if she could treat him to something expensive. The latter said yes. Youngman dropped the call with a sly smile after that. Now, there are some things he has to do. Now that his body has improved, he must devise a method of making use of his special talent. A smile of encouragement appears on his face, and his sparkling blue eyes light up. He jumped to his bathroom, took a quick shower, a quick change of fresh clothes, and he was off to the train station. He was wearing a brown jacket, black pants, and brown boots. As he sat on the chair, he scrolled through his phone. Borpich, who has a rank of 76 worldwide, according to the article he was reading, was unable to get access to the Sword Master's tower. Many rankers, back when the towers were first created, took on the risky endeavor of attacking the tower. Those who were successful in their attacks on the tower were either granted regressing skills or elevated to positions of power and prominence. However, the tower's difficulty has recently increased, making an assault currently unfeasible. However, those who are trying to challenge the tower have not given up. Seeing how they keep trying even after failing like that is a mystery. Youngman was wondering if they were perverts, though. On the other hand, there's a saying that says you can achieve success in life even if you never join a team, which for him is understandable. People from the comments were happy that Borpich did not make it to the tower. One of the commenters even labeled him as half insane after watching him mess up his interview. It seemed strange to Youngman that no one, not even people of high ranks, had been able to enter the Sword Master's tower as of yet. After walking for a few minutes, Youngman arrived at his destination. It was the same as the tower he conceptualized. To at least take a closer look at it, he did not hesitate to enter the place, given the fact that he had to climb at least 100 stairs. At that moment, Junseo realizes not exercising enough will be his death. At last, he managed to reach the place in one piece, still breathing. Nonetheless, he made it without getting lost in the place. He wiped the sweat rolling down his face. He was so exhausted that he could just lie on the floor and sleep for a straight week. His eyes light up when he gazes at what's in front of him. Despite being exhausted, he was filled with happiness. He walked towards it and touched the surface. It was a big slab of rock that has some unknown writings engraved on the surface. Touching it will channel the power of one of the 7 heroes into the person touching it. His moment was interrupted when a person from behind called him. His eyebrows rose, and his mouth snapped open. It was a man with brown hair, his skin complexion was fair, and he carried a stick with him. The man notices that it is Youngman's first time in the tower. He advises that he should not touch anything that he pleases because it may result in danger. A person can be invited into the tower just by touching any item on it, which is the reason why ability users don't touch it recklessly. Youngman put on a fake grin and reached out to the writings more. He insists that everything will be alright because there is no way he will ever be invited into the tower. But the truth is, the reason he cannot be invited inside is because he is such a terribly weak human. So, is it a good thing or a bad thing? What do you think? And the fact that he will just run away if ever that he will do get invited into the tower. #bitter. Then suddenly, the tower emits a blinding light. The true owner of the 7 towers is resonating with the tower. The color drained out of his face. His eyes widened and his lips quivered. As a response, the owner of the tower is inviting you. Within a split second, his surroundings changed. People were gone. It was just him in the middle of green grasses. Meanwhile, before Youngman was invited inside the tower, a man was found sitting on a throne, observing Youngman himself from a hologram. An explanation for Youngman's presence in the tower area eluded the man. It was strange for him. Judging by Youngman's mana, he concluded that he is definitely just an ordinary person, but it still keeps bothering him. He needs to find things out, so he thinks of ways. The corners of his mouth turned up, and delight was reflected in his eyes. He decided to call Youngman inside the tower so they could have a little talk. He lifted his hand and instantly, the sword that cuts through the horizon is inviting you for the first time to the first floor of the Sword Master's tower. That, my friends, is how Youngman ended up in his place. Now, a test is about to begin. Its difficulty is unknown, as well as the rewards. But one thing is for sure, Youngman is so doomed. Catastrophe-class monsters will be awake in an hour. He has to get away from the first floor before they attack. In short, he has to run for his life right at this moment. The shock left Youngman speechless. As he threw his hair around like a crazy person, he was overcome with fear throughout his entire being. A monster wave is about to spawn in 59 minutes and 59 seconds, as per the countdown. To think about it, it is impossible for an ordinary person who does not possess any attack skills to enter the tower. Up until now, something like this had never occurred before. There are some points in his life where he had to endure nosebleeds for hours just to make a bone-breaking effort to climb it. But in the end, he was ultimately labeled negatively. Students called him an unqualified attacker after gaining the last place in their practical tests. And even if he indeed awakened his unique ability, there is no way he can attack the tower. Are they telling Youngman to die? He became paled at that thought. Suddenly, a hologram appeared in front of him. It described him as a scarecrow, looking funny with the taste of despair on his face. The color drained out of his face even more as he tumbled down to the ground. His mouth fell open, a size of a basketball could fit inside of it. His eyes were fighting back tears, and he looked like he had seen a ghost. The hologram told him that he had made the game easier for him to the best of his ability, and invited him inside the tower, but he was disappointed. It was clear from his confused state that he was just a cripple-class person who got lucky. The furrows in Youngman's brow deepened. He felt insulted. But hold on, is there any way to lower the difficulty level? He questioned the hologram. In its response, it says that it is his tower, so it is up to him whether to increase or decrease the difficulty level. Youngman was confused. If it is his tower, then according to his novel, he must be Eden. Oh, you know me? Eden asked. Of course, love, Youngman is the one who made you. But can Youngman say those? It is possible that he is not the same Eden he knows. Before he could even think of any way to confirm it, Eden began to brag. He says that he has become quite famous in a few days since the tower was created. My, it's tiring if I get too famous, though. My, Eden. Don't tire yourself too much. Sigh. At that very time, it was confirmed by Youngman. It turns out that it is really Eden. Eden is the main character of the 7 heroes. He is the complete reflection of Youngman, the talentless, a boy who knew how to wield the sword but had no talent in mana. He was able to awaken his mana with the aid of his instructor, met some colleagues, and then set out for the Devil's Castle. And having vanquished the demons, he was hailed as a hero by all. Eden was beyond his wildest imagination. That's why he loved him so much and favored him the most among all the characters he created in his novel. Youngman was feeling over the moon with the idea of talking with the main character in the novel he wrote. On the other hand, Eden was pissed because Youngman was not listening, and the fact that he even displayed a perverted smile. Youngman's nose flared, his pupils dilated, and his mouth was wide open when Eden bid him goodbye. He did call him inside, but he already lowered the difficulty level, so he had to try escaping on his own. With simple good luck, Eden vanished into thin air. Now, Youngman is on his own. As if monsters would not spawn in a few minutes, he was there, sitting still, not moving an inch. He even forgot to breathe, I think. But are there any choices he can choose from? Of course, none. He shut his eyes and scratched his head. If there were any other choices, he would have done it a while ago instead of just sitting looking like a lost child. Moreover, he thinks that if he cannot clear the task, the tower will not bother calling him there in the first place. 10 minutes have passed since the countdown started. Youngman dragged himself from the ground. He is inside his novel, so there must be a way. He must think of all the information he wrote in the book. It can save his life. When Youngman looked up, he saw a figure flying through the air. It terrified him. It was a dragon. Its body was red like a raging inferno, and its thick wings were black like charcoal. Youngman, at that moment, after seeing the dragon, realizes that the tower did not invite him to play. If he would just stand there frozen like a block of ice, he certainly would not have had the chance to get out alive. In 50 minutes, those catastrophe-class monsters are going to flock in, so he has to move and think quickly. Fortunately, the dragon did not see him. First, Youngman has to find any clue that would let him know where the place he is right now. He was standing on damp soil. There were grassy meadows all around the area. There were mountains from afar, and the sun was still up. He should use the sun's light to his advantage, though. With these, he has accumulated information about the current space through investigation, as per the system. Now, it is searching records based on the new information about the author of the story. Youngman stopped on his track when he felt something underneath his feet. He lowered his gaze. It was a single branch of wood. No, scratch that. As he looked around the place, there were multiple branches of wood scattered around. He bent his knee and examined one of the branches. Were they wooden swords? He thought. He widened his thought and concluded that even for practice, it would be useless. No one can use it because the shape of its cut looks obscure. He examined all the corners of the wooden on his hand. He found an engraving on the surface. Eden's name was on it. Youngman's expression lit up with joy. You have obtained an additional keyword, Eden's destroyed wooden sword. Without any doubt, he was on the first episode of his novel. Currently, he is on the first floor of the tower, the place where the talentless young boy was awakened as a genius. Therefore, the ground he is standing on right now used to be Eden's training ground, where he practiced making swords, which explains the pieces of wood all over the place. It started from the beginning of the story. In his novel, it was called Eden's Awakening. Then, reality hits him. It hits him hard. He felt cheated. Eden told him that the difficulty level was lowered. But he was lying, such a liar. Even with all the information he gained, and even if he was prepared, would someone like him be able to do that? He doubted. Youngman uttered a curse into the air. He summons up all of the bravery he can muster and tries to persuade himself that it will work somehow. Because the more he dwells on his misfortunes, the more time he will waste and the more miserable he will become. He had a firm grasp on the piece of wood before driving it into the ground. As he stared at it, his pupils drew more apart. After initially displaying alarm, from the looks of being shocked, it became satisfaction. He found it. As Youngman dug a hole in the ground to retrieve an unknown string of plant, he couldn't contain his excitement. After he had believed that he had won the jackpot, his expression changed to one of disappointment, and he slouched his shoulders and grimaced. But there is a good chance that the plant will permanently increase the magic power by 1, despite the fact that it looks ugly and disgusting. Scourge leather quarr is the common name for this plant. Extremely uncommon and exquisite, this plant can be used as a spiritual herb. Its cultivation is restricted to places where mana is uncontaminated. Youngman paid no attention to how unappealing it looked. He believes that this plant was hard to find, but there are currently at least 50 of them scattered around the area. And because it has the appearance of a fiber, he believes that no one has ever considered eating it. Yet, his curiosity got the better of him. He now regrets trying some of the Scourge leather quarr because it was one of the worst choices he had made in his entire existence. His eyes flashed hatred for himself. The color drains out of his face. His jaw dropped as he took out his tongue, hoping that the air would help him clear the bitter taste. Can someone please help this poor soul? His novel made it clear that although it is a fraudulent item, it tastes insanely bitter. Why do you have to forget that, Youngman? You're the one who wrote the book. To Youngman's annoyance, he tightened his hold on the Scourge leather quarr even further as he continued to murder it with his eyes. His anger is rooted down to the fact that he is such a picky eater when it comes at bitter foods. By the way, a sense of solemnity and urgency brought him back to reality when he learned that there were now only 45 minutes left until the monster wave begins. If he does not come to his senses, he might die without being able to do anything. So he convinced himself that the taste didn't matter if his life was at stake. His tears of sorrow rolled down from his eyes as he sobbed in silence. Even though he did not like it, he forced the unpleasant plant down on his throat. There isn't much time to spare. He has to eat them as quickly as he can. There were just 15 minutes left till the monster wave, and Youngman could not recall how many Scourge leather quarr he had consumed. But he thought it was at least 40. But it makes no difference because he has the sudden urge to throw up at any moment. He might as well be dead now, the way he looks. The blood from his bleeding nose soaked through his hoodie. He feels like someone is twisting his stomach from the inside out. Your perception of mana is increasing. The amount of mana that Youngman possesses has increased, yet his body has reached its maximum capacity, and as a result, the equilibrium of his body has become unsteady. Youngman pulled himself together as he wiped the residue of blood on his nose. At this point, even though the amount of mana he consumed has his body's capacity, it is still enough to pour them out into the wooden sword, just like Eden did. On the other side, Eden was observed to be sitting confused on his throne. He was pondering the question of how on earth Youngman is familiar with the Scourge leather quarr. Those are not present on Earth. He began to doubt and question whether Youngman had observed anything or whether it was even capable for him to have known about the tower's information in advance, given that it is impossible to happen. Now, Youngman is down on the last step. Once upon a time, she was one of the royal magicians of a small country. She had moved out to the countryside after losing her comrades in a demon subjugation, and that's where she met Eden. Due to his unsteady control of mana, Eden frequently hurt himself. She felt bad for the kid and sought to help him learn how to control it. Eden's mana was stabilized not long after that. That happiness she felt teaching Eden made her a magic teacher in that rural village, and that she was Eden's first teacher. If Youngman is not wrong, then the condition for immersion will certainly be fulfilled. Quickly, he gripped the wooden sword in his hand and thrust it on the ground to begin the immersion. He was not wrong. Eden's first teacher, Dere Marsha, gives him the blessing of magic. Eden was speechless as he contemplated what he had just witnessed. He recognized that the magic belonged to his master, and could not possibly be incorrect. A smile was plastered on Youngman's face as he spoke his command. The mana must be collected in his heart, then to his fingertips and into the wooden sword. But as he did it, a warning was made. His mana is being severely depleted. It was running rampant in his body. Then an anomaly has occurred in his heart. Then from his heart, anomalies have spread all over his body. Blood made its way out of Youngman's mouth once again. On the other hand, Eden was still confused. When he witnessed Youngman utilizing the mana control, it made the situation much even worse. The sword that cuts the horizon warns you that you may die. Youngman, pay no attention to the warning. He is fully aware that what he is doing is a suicidal act on his part. He was not scared of dying. After all, the light intensified around him. He doesn't wish to perish in a state of helplessness. Youngman tried to focus his eyes on the wooden sword as the energy flowing through it became bigger. He gripped it tightly, his life depended on it. It would have been 10 times better for him to have died after giving his all in an effort to live. Youngman stands firm on his ground with this belief. As he yelled at the very top of his lungs, his eyes turned completely white. The life force was being drawn out of his body by the energy that the mana radiated. Then after a few seconds, the light was gone. It was finished. The first floor has been successfully cleared, but he made the sacrifice. A small smile crept on his lips. He sacrifices his life for the weapon. He died. The swords that cuts the horizon is paying tributes to your death. But the Seven Towers' true owner has unlocked a hidden strategy. So, what will happen now?